She was very much ashamed because at that time, she immediately got up from the lap surrounded by other women. Upon seeing this particularly women loitering near his ashrama, Buddha, the son of the moon, immediately desired to enjoy her.
The beautiful woman also desired to accept Buddha, the son of the king of the moon, as her husband. Thus Buddha begot in her womb a son named Pururava. Text 36. I heard from reliable sources that King Sudyumna, the son of Manu, having thus achieved femininity, remembered his familial spiritual master, Vasishtha.
Upon seeing Sudyumna's deplorable condition, Vasishtha was very much aggrieved. Desiring for Sudyumna to regain his maleness, Vasishtha again began to worship Lord Shankara, Shiva.
O King Parikshit, Lord Shiva was pleased with Vasishtha. Therefore, to satisfy him and repeat his own word to Parvati, Lord Shiva said to that sacred person, your disciple Sudyumna may remain a male for 1 month and female for the next. In this way, he may rule the world as he likes.
As being favored by the spiritual master, according to the words of Lord Shiva, Sudyumna regained his desired maleness. Every alternate month, and in this way ruled the kingdom. Although the citizens were not satisfied with this.
I'm sorry, can someone read from that book because it's tough.
O King Sudyumna had 3 very pious sons named Utkala, Gaya, and Vimala, who became the kings of the Dakshinapata. Anybody else have a device?
Thereafter, when the time was ripe, when Sudyumna, the king of the world, was sufficiently old, he delivered the entire kingdom to his son Pururava and entered the forest.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Staya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Devani Vacharani Vishesha Sunivadi Siddhati Shadari. We're supposed to do 33. Tata Urdvam Vanam Tadvai Purusha Varjayanti Sa Chanuchara Samyukta Vichachara Vanadvanam
Tadaudravam vanam tadvai.
Tata Urdvam Vanam Tadvai
Purusha Vrajayantihi.
Purusha Vrajayanti
Sachanuchara samyukta.
Sachanuchara Samyukta
Vichachara Vanadvanam.
Vichachara Vanadvanam
Tata urdvam vanam tadvai.
Tata Urdvam Vanam Tadvai
Purusha Varjayantihi.
Purusham Varjayanti
Sachanucharam samyukta.
Sachanucharam Samyukta
Vichachara Vanadvanam.
Vichachara Vanadvanam
Tata urdvam vanam tadve.
Tata Urdvam Vanam Tadvai
Purusha Varjayantihi.
Purusha Varjayanti
Sachanuchara samyukta.
Sachanuchara Samyukta
Vichachara vanadvanam.
Vichachara Vanadvanam
Tata urdhvam vana tadvai.
Purusha varjayantihi.
Purusha Varjayanti
Sachanuchara samyukta.
Sachanuchara Samyukta
Vichachara vanadvanam.
Vichachara Vanadvanam Tata Urdvam Vanam Tadvai
Purusha varjayanti.
Purusha Varjayanti
Sachanuchara samyukta.
Sachanuchara Samyukta
Vichachara vanadvanam.
Vichachara Vanadvaram. Are we done? Tata Urdvam. Do you read it all together or do we follow in? Okay.
As you like.
From the time onward. Vanam, forest. Tat, that. Vai, in particular. Purusha, males. Varjayanti, do not enter. He, indeed. Sa, Sadyumna, in the form of a woman. Cha, also. Jara Samyukta, accompanied by his companions. Vichatar walked. Vanak Vanam, within the forest, from one place to another. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Since that, we were all together? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Since that time, no male had entered that forest. But now King Sudyumna, having been transformed into a female, began to walk with his associates from one forest to another. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 2.22, it is said, you all know this verse, right? Vasamsi jirnani gita vihaya navani granati naro parani tatasa irani vihaya jirnani adyani samyati navani dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. The body is just like a dress, and here this is proved. Sudyumna and his associates were all male, which means that their souls were covered by male dress. But now they became female, which means that their dress was changed. The soul, however, remains the same. It is said that by modern medical treatment, a male can be transformed into a female, and a female into a male. The body, however, has no connection with the soul. The body can be changed either in this life or the next. Therefore, one who has the knowledge of the soul and how the soul transmigrates from one body to another does not pay attention to the body, which is nothing but a covering dress. Pandita Samadarshanaha. Such a person sees the soul, which is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, he is Samadarshi, a learned person. Mukam karoti vachalam bangam langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarani Vanchakalpatrivascha Kripasindu Vyevacha Patitana Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the basic topic of this verse is that gender difference is not such a big deal. It's the understanding that the soul is the same in all bodies, and so the value of each is the same. And we see that somehow or other, though, it feels important because we get really attached to whatever we have. And so we see that in this world, gender is important, race is important, so much so that there's lots of conflict about the differences between race. Even you see the rise and fall of different conflicts between gender distinctions. In the 70s, many women became quite upset by the so much distinction between men and women that women didn't have some basic human rights. So we see that the feminist movement started. Rightly so. It's just that you can fight for something, but then you start to identify with it so much that you can go full swing the other way. And so then you see that many feminists became like anti-male, which is the same disease. So how to find the balance is really tough. And we understand that understanding spiritual life, to understand it fully, it's quite an important principle. Because you see, when you're preaching to somebody, you're preaching and then something's not quite fitting in, and you realize you haven't explained to them how they're not the body. Like, until we understand we're not the body, we're a soul, the rest of the preaching doesn't make sense. And so we do need to very deeply understand how we are the soul and how we need to be acting from that platform, not solely from the bodily platform. We do see, though, that the body creates limitations, and that has to be acknowledged. Prabhupada's quoting from this verse, Pandita Samadarshana Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Suni Chaiva Sapakecha Pandita Samadarshana, that we shouldn't be seeing distinctions between caste, say a Brahmin, between animals and humans, an elephant, between different grades of humans, a supposedly more highly situated person and a person in a lower situation. Because the outer covering is not what's important, it's that sameness that we're all souls. And what's really important is that the supersoul is residing with every living entity along with their soul in the body. And so not only does that soul need respect, but the supersoul needs respect in each body. And so Srila Prabhupada said that's why when one devotee sees another, he sees that the supersoul is residing in the heart of that living entity. And so we offer obeisances like we offer obeisances to God, because we are offering obeisances to that presence of God within the other souls. So it's a basic principle that we're not this body. However, because of conditioning, Prabhupada would say from time immemorial, we've been through 8 million, how many thousand? 8,400,000 species of life. So you get pretty conditioned that, in this mosquito body, I'm supposed to go and, get some blood from you. And in this dog body, I'm supposed to wag my tail and you'll give me a biscuit. And, it's like we get really conditioned to the body. So it's hard. It's hard to break away. And because we identify with it so much, we can get ourselves into pickles. So we think that because my body's so important and I have to fight for it, we take more than we need, or we harm another living entity because we think they're going to cause some discomfort to us. So it's all based on the bodily identification. And we see that even in the spiritual realms, that's still really hard for people to grasp this philosophy in a deep way. We know that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he understood that if a person could understand Krishna consciousness deeply, that they were qualified to perform the duties of a brahmana and to worship the deity and to engage in Vaishnava activities. And when he would go on parikram around Navadvip, he wanted to take everybody to all the holy places. And we see that some other spiritual institutions would close the doors because he was bringing souls in bodies that weren't born in Brahmin families and weren't, in their minds, eligible to enter the temple. So we see that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he's such an elevated soul, and he could understand the real essence, and others couldn't. And so they would slam the doors on them and throw things at them. So it's a really hard principle to understand. And we see that even in our spiritual movement, it's gone through different phases where that tendency to lord it over just somehow enters in. And so there's been phases where women haven't been treated well, or whether people in non-Indian bodies haven't been treated well, just some conditioning of the body. It enters in. So understanding this principle deeply, we can see it's hard. It's hard. because of our conditioning. But we understand that it's just a body, and we need to see that the body is given by Krishna, and it's Krishna's body. It's actually Krishna's body. And we are not even the proprietors of our body. So we should utilize it in Krishna's service. So there's this story in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita where Sanatana Goswami, he wanted to go and visit Lord Chaitanya. And he walked all the way from Vrindavan to Puri. And when he went through the Jarikhanda forest, he got some infection in his skin. And so by the time he got to Jagannath Puri, he had all these oozing sores on his body. And so he went to see Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya embraced him, and he just felt, oh my gosh, how can he touch me? You know, I'm just going to contaminate him. And so when he would walk to the temple, he would go the far way around along the beach, and it was so hot, he was burning his feet. He got blisters on his feet. And Lord Chaitanya said, why do you have blisters on your feet? Well, why are you walking that way? Walk on the shaded path. And he said, but I might touch some pujari who's going to the temple, and then, you know, I'm muchi, and it might contaminate them for the puja. So he was so humble. And then he started thinking, you know, Lord Chaitanya, I am contaminating him with my body. He wants to give me a devotional embrace, but my body is so gross. This is offensive. He thought, I should just commit suicide because his body is offensive to Lord Chaitanya. So he had this plan in his mind that Rath Yatra is coming up, and he thought he would go and throw his body under the wheels of the cart. Now those carts are so huge, and they're going along with momentum, that I think most years in Puri, somebody does get killed, mostly by accident. But if you just get too close and there's not the wheel guards, you just get under those carts. His body's finished. So he thought, if I do that, at least I will attain Krishna, because the wheels of Lord Jagannath's cart have gone over my body. So Lord Chaitanya, he's present in everyone's heart, and he could understand what Sanatana Goswami was thinking. So he went to Sanatana Goswami and he said, you're a thief. He goes, pardon me? You're a thief. You're thinking that this body is yours, and you're going to go and kill it. But it's my body. It's not yours. And so he said, I have some service that needs to be done with that body. And you need to go to Vrindavan and open these temples and write these books and like that. It's not yours. And so Sanatana Goswami immediately understood his misconception. And then I think Lord Chaitanya, he embraced him, and this time all the oozing sores in his body just disappeared. His, healing touch. So the touch of the Lord, not only does it, heal our minds, but in this case, healed the body also. So it's really, really a deeper spiritual principle than we think. Because we all go, yeah, we're not the body, and Prabhupada keeps bringing it up, yeah, we're not the body. But do we get it? I mean, we don't. Right? As soon as we're in some kind of stressful situation, we go to mitigate that stress with something. Me, it's I'm going to go to the kitchen. Somebody else, they're going to do something else. Somebody else, they go for a long walk. They're smart. But you got to get that stress, out somehow or other. So it's really a hard concept to actually apply. We're really so conditioned. I heard this lecture by Hridayananda Maharaj one time, and he said he was preaching to some quite aristocratic people in South America, and he was telling them how, we're not this body, we're the soul. And the lady says, yeah, I get that. I'm a female soul. Like, you just, you know. So, it's tough. And, you know, it's troublesome, but we somehow have to realize that, you know, we're a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And we need to use our body in Krishna's service. And the more we use our body in Krishna's service, gradually, bit by bit, we'll start to understand that we are a soul. I remember when we first joined, there was one devotee, it was Patraka, and it was his birthday. And everybody said, oh, this is a very special birthday. He's been a devotee for 7 years. And we understood that every 7 years, all the cells in your body, they've completely changed. You know, your cells are always changing and rejuvenating. So I think science at that time understood that after 7 years, all the cells in your body had been new. So they thought, he's been a devotee 7 years. He has a purely spiritual body. He's been chanting Hare Krishna for 7 years, so we should celebrate this, you know, that his body's no longer material. Because we do understand that by engaging our bodies in Krishna's service, they gradually will spiritualize. Because it's a consciousness which determines the result, not the body. So Prabhupada would give the example of an iron rod. It may be iron, but we put it in a hot fire, and then that rod can perform the activities of a fire. You touch it to a piece of paper, and it's going to light on fire. When it's cold, it couldn't do that. So by engaging in Krishna's service, we can gradually purify all of our desires, because it's our consciousness will determine the convictions that we have to engage in activities. So by changing our consciousness, we can change our convictions, and then gradually everything becomes spiritualized. So much so that we see when the body of a soul with a self-realized body leaves this world, we don't perform, what do they call when you burn the body? Cremation, right? We don't cremate it, because mostly bodies need to be purified, right? So we cremate them. But for a self-realized soul, we understand that they have engaged in so many spiritual activities that even the body has become spiritualized. So then we see when we go to the holy places that there's samadhis for these souls, because they've used their bodies completely in Krishna's service, and so the body is no longer material. So that's our goal, to utilize our bodies completely in Krishna's service so that they become spiritualized. And mostly it's purifying that consciousness. So we see here that it's a very interesting part of the Bhagavatam where Sudumna, he was transformed into a woman. And well, we have to accept, you know, what happens by the grace of the Lord. He could also understand that it was his duty to rule the kingdom, and that was going to be a little bit hard when he was in this body as a lady in this forest with Lord Shiva. And so we see that the Kshatriyas, they're very oriented to wanting to perform their duties for the service of the Lord. And so he petitioned his guru Vasishta, how can I carry on with my service? And so Vasishta went to Lord Shiva, as we were reading, and Lord Shiva goes, well, you know, I need to keep my wife out of anxiety, and I need to keep the citizens of the kingdom out of anxiety because they need a ruler. So how about we make this deal, and 1 month you can be the lady, and 1 month you can be a man. So it said that somehow or other, though, he went and he ruled the kingdom. But just like we know, if Bhakti Marg Swami isn't here at all, things start to fall apart. So he goes traveling, but, you know, if he doesn't come back sometimes, you all get an anxiety. So it was the same thing with the citizens. citizens of countries are big things, and they didn't just rule a little country, they practically ruled the whole earth at this point. So there was some anxiety going on, and they weren't happy. So we see that it's just quite interesting how we have to find that balance. And we were devotees. I remember there was this devotee, and he joined Krishna consciousness as I don't know how he joined. Anyway, he was a she. He got a gender transplant, and he transplanted, so he was in a woman's body. And then somehow or other, I guess after coming to Krishna consciousness, he was thinking, maybe I'm more like a man. And so he went to Srila Prabhupada and he said, should I change my body back? And Prabhupada goes, it doesn't matter, just pick one and stick with it. So, Prabhupada's just so spot on, So, this happened to Kamsa one time too. Kamsa always had these spies that he would send to Vrindavan. So one time the spies came back and they said, well, that cohort you sent didn't work. He's dead too, killed. He said, but when I was there, there's a lot of beautiful women in that place. And he said, I saw one woman so exquisitely beautiful, and her name was Radharani. And when he started to describe Radharani, the hairs on his body stood on end, and tears started falling from his eyes, and he went into complete ecstasy, and he went unconscious. Because even describing Radharani, even if you're a demon, you can't help but be affected. So Kamsa thought, maybe I should go and make Radharani my queen. And so he took a big army and he went to the edge of Vrindavan, and he heard that Radharani mostly resided in Yavat. So in Yavat there's this beautiful kund, Kishori Kund, that Srimati Radharani and her gopis would take their baths in. And outside of that there was this big forest. So they stopped at the forest, and Kamsa got off his chariot or his horse or however he got there, and he said, you guys stay here. I'm going to go get myself a girl, right? Mm-hmm. So somehow or other the Dom could understand that these not very nice people had arrived. And so she started to shrink a little bit, hide herself. So Kamsa's walking along, and he comes to this kund, and he's feeling very thirsty after his long journey from Mathura. So he goes to take a little bit of water, and when just a few drops of Kishori Kund fell on him, all of a sudden his body transformed. And he's reaching his hand out of the water, and he'd come in with, beautiful jewels, these heavy gold bangles, beautiful crown, ornate, clothes. And he's taking his hand out, and it looks very feminine, very small, and these delicate bangles on. And he jumps up, and he looks, and instead of his, armor and all this stuff, his royal clothes, he's got this, flowing skirt on. And he looks in the kund, and nice makeup and hairdo and, beautiful clothes. And he's shocked. And he looks over, and there he sees two gopis going down the steps of the kund. And it's Lalita and Vishaka. And he said, excuse me? And Lalita looks over, do you need some help? Who are you, and, yeah,
When the gopis saw him, they'd never seen this gopi before. They went down and said, who are you, gopi? We don't know you. Where are you from? And he said, I'm actually the king of Mathura, and something happened here. I got transferred into Lord. And the gopis started laughing and laughing and laughing. He said, that's the funniest thing we've ever heard.
So, that happened. And then he's just fulfilling the prophecy that Partha and Uttama are giving class today. Who gave that announcement? Yeah. So Prabhupada said that when you become a Brahmin, whatever you say becomes the truth. So, so he says this to Lalita, and he says, "Can you help me?" And she says, "Well, you must have had," he said, "this kund can fulfill all of your desires. And you must have had a desire to come and kidnap some devotees. And that's why you have this body as a woman. So now you can take this body as a woman and you can take it off and take your womanly body out of here. You've got the body, you want, take it away, kidnap it and go. No. Please, can you help me?" And Lalita was just about to say some harsh cutting words. And Srimati Radharani came in her mind and said, "Bring him to me. If he can somehow or other engage in Krishna's service, that will be great for my Lord Sri Krishna." So Lalita said, "Well, our mistress, Srimati Radharani, she has all the powers here. And perhaps if you go and petition to her, I'm sure she can help you." So she said, "You should do some service though." So he got a bucket and he took some water from Kishori Kund and he put it on his head. And he thought, "I will take this bucket of water to Srimati Radharani." And he was thinking, "I really need to get this body back, and so I should please her." And so as he was walking along, he actually offered his obeisances to every Vaishnavi, gopi, resident of Vrindavan that he saw along the way. So Lalita takes him to Srimati Radharani's quarters, and there's a waiting room outside, and says, "Just wait here, I will see if you can take her darshan or whatever." So she goes in and she says, "There's this new gopi here, and she's got this fabulous story that it's King Kamsa. Can you believe that? Strange." She says, weird. So let me go see. So she holds her head very high, and she goes out. And when Kamsa saw her, it was the most beautiful being he had ever seen. And it's described that it seemed like spring personified with a tinge of all the seasons just walked in the room. And he just prostrated himself before her, more because he's trying to get her pleasure for, her grace, for whatever, than really out of honor. But and she said, "I've been hearing this story. Could I hear it from your mouth?" He said, "Well, I'm, the ruler of this kingdom. And I was here, trying to check out if everything's okay. And I'm here, and somehow I touched these waters, and I've turned into a lady, and I can't rule the kingdom properly. Can you help me?" And she said, "I know that you came with terrible motives to steal away some gopis. No. You have been sending your demon friends here to kill Krishna. And none of them were successful. But my dear Krishna gets bothered by having to kill these demons when he just wants to play. So you need to stop sending these demons. Okay, anything you say. Do you promise? I promise. I won't send any more demons. Are you sure? Yes, I promise. And so she said, all right. You go back, splash some water from Kishori Kund on you, and you will turn back into a man.
He had to vow 3 times at the tomb. I will never return, and I will never send any of my associates back to Vrindavan. He had to vow that 3 times.
3 times. Yes. And so she said, if you don't fulfill your promise, you will again turn into a woman, and there will be no changing that. Just to, set it in. So Kamsa went back, and he got his male body back. And I believe that he really didn't send any demons for a whole year. No demons came to Vrindavan. And then somehow or other, Keshi convinced him I should go, So that was the last demon that Krishna killed. So it's just, I don't know, kind of a similar story. So anybody like to add anything? Maharaj?
Well, that's a question. How would you counsel someone who would go to yourself or like this does happen where leaders, they get approached and say, listen, I'm thinking about changing my gender and I just want your blessings. So what advice would you give?
I guess I would ask them why. Why is it so important for you? And probably encourage them to try to change the consciousness instead of the gender, because it's a messy procedure. It's a long procedure, to get that change, and I don't imagine it's much fun. And, I guess if somebody is just somehow or other not able to change their consciousness, and that's really what they feel that they need, I think I would probably give my blessings that with whatever they feel they need to do, the ultimate result is that they can change their consciousness and become Krishna conscious, and, go back to Godhead. Because we all have this independence, and who am I to stop a person from their independence? People also come and, for a while, polygamy. We read about polygamy in the Bhagavatam. And so devotees thinking, it should be Vedic, should maybe be good to have polygamy. And Srila Prabhupada, he could see that in Vedic times that was there, and when it's done properly, and each wife gets their own home, and they can be looked after very nicely, Kshatriyas, it was sometimes beneficial for them. And so Srila Prabhupada, he considered that maybe it could be possible in some circumstances, but then he realized that we actually couldn't pull it off very well. And he also realized that it would impede the acceptance of our Krishna consciousness movement, because polygamy is illegal in most countries. And so he said, for preaching, this will not work. And he said, I don't really think we all couldn't pull it off well. So it's kind of interesting, because polygamy's illegal, but there's a huge thing now for open marriages. That just with each other's consent, we can have more partners. And I remember somebody asked me about that, and I said, well, it's really messy. It's already hard enough. Prabhupada said, sometime, he said one time, someone went to Prabhupada and asked if he could have a second wife. And Srila Prabhupada said, He says a brahmachari, he has to think it over 100 times before he gets married. You know, how much trouble you're going to go through. He said, I just think it's just unnecessarily complicating your life, you know? Because it's hard enough to get on together with two different people in one house. How are you going to pull this off? So we don't want to make our lives unnecessarily complicated, just trying to make our bodies comfortable. You know, yes, when we break our leg, you know, we need to go and fix it because it's really hard to engage in service. So you do what you need to do to make the body comfortable enough that it's not impeding your ability to engage in service. But you don't want to overdo it, that it becomes complicated. That's what I say. Keep life simple. Anybody else have any comments, questions?
Thank you for that wonderful class. I had a question that in one of the translations, it was mentioned about the name Buddha. So it's the same one, like the Gautam Buddha, or so different one?
That's a very good question. So Buddha was here. It was the son of the moon. So you're asking if it's the same Buddha as the incarnation? I don't think so. No. Yeah. I thought it was interesting that when Sudumna was a woman, he got the son Pururava, and when he was a male, he had 3 sons. And then when it was time for him to take Vanapras and go to the forest, it seemed like the son from when he was a female was the oldest, and that son got to rule the kingdom. I just noted that. The other thing I noticed was I was asking the question, we don't know much about King Satyavrata from the previous millennium. So it appears that in the next millennium, King Satyavrata was born as Vaivashvata Manu. So we're getting the whole progression here in this story.
In the beginning of the class, you mentioned a very nice explanation about feminism, that like it's just the same disease but the other way. Do you know if anywhere in the Shastras there was feminism? Like, how did it originate and how did it originate? How did feminism originate? And is there anything in the Shastra about it, or is just a Kali symptom?
Well, feminism, like I said, it started in the 70s, just because, you know, how often can you do the same job and get paid like way, way less? You know, it started from those kind of things, right? So the Shastras are Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva. We are all simultaneously same and non-different from the energy of Krishna. So every soul is completely equal. Now, the reason we are in this material world is because we have this tendency to lord it over. So whatever body we have, we want to somehow or other lord it over some other bodies. So men bodies are stronger, usually, and they can exert more power. So just like we see some countries, they have more ammunition, they exert their power, and they bring another country under their control. So we all have powers that are meant to be used in Krishna service. But when we don't, we just want to use it for ourselves. And so ladies can fall into that too. It's not like we lord it over too, you know, it's like we boss people around, we think we're the controllers, we try to, you know, it's not that it's just in a male body you get that mentality. It happens in every species of life, you know. So that's the Shastric version. And the tendency is that we're always going to want to try to lord it over, as long as we're conditioned. And so then you see, like I was saying, you know, feminism went to, then they want to lord it over the men. It's the same thing. But we have to see that, you know, we're equal and treat each other equal. And then we all lord it over the earth. Like we see, there's so much pollution. The earth's in such a terrible condition because mankind is lording it over and using everything in the wrong way. So that's what we do in this material world.
How do we find the balance then?
You have to understand that we're pure spirit soul, and that everybody deserves equal respect. And we don't have a right to have power over another person. We don't have the right to make anybody do anything without their free will. We don't have that right.
Yeah.
So even in leadership, you always have to contract. May I instruct you in this? Is it okay if I tell you how to do this? Is it okay if I help you with that? Because we don't have a right to overlord anybody. Just because we're the temple commander or we're the this or we're that, we're all equal spiritual souls.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a situation recently where a devotee friend of mine kind of, I guess you could say, came out of the closet. He's like, okay, I think I'm gay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm concerned about how that would be perceived in the movement if I marry a man.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to somebody who brings up feeling like this?
So the person's concerned how that will be perceived?
Yeah, how that will be perceived.
Yeah. It's going to be an uphill battle because we're all conditioned in certain ways. And we're starting to get more mature in Krishna consciousness, where we can see a person's intent for spiritual life and not distinguish with the bodily choices that they've made. Everybody isn't on the same level of spiritual advancement, and so they may be discriminated against unfairly, and that's sad. You want to say something, Maharaj?
Yes. About 10 years ago, the leaders asked SAC, that's the Shastric Advisory Committee, put out a paper on same-sex issues, and a paper did get released.
Mm-hmm.
Not public, didn't go there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I was kind of worried about it. I thought it might swing this way or that way. I thought our leaders would be extremely conservative, the bulk of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they were very mature about it.
Yeah.
And the message was not so much condemning somebody who's got same-sex inclinations, but it was more about, the emphasis of the paper was more about going towards loving Krishna, try to keep your senses in control, and even one of my Guru godbrothers, he said, anybody who approaches him in this manner, he said, okay, just love one person, commit yourself to one person,
Yeah.
and don't have multiple relationships, don't spoil yourself that way.
Yeah.
So I thought the paper was very mature in just directing everyone who's got those tendencies to, commit to Krishna, cultivate your love for Krishna. And because even heterosexuality is a problem. But Prabhupada explains that the sexual power is the problem.
Yeah.
And you want to get down to the point where you can't really oppress it.
Yeah.
There's ways to deal with it.
Yeah, because your body is born that way. I can't remember the technical medical terms, but you just have more of something than the other, and it's.
Yeah. So I thought it was very mature, but it never got released, and I've asked a few times as the communications.
Yeah.
If something's going to happen on that, but it never did.
Yeah.
This town's kind of silent on it, but I just want to say that the leaders most of them are just really pretty mature on looking at this subject, and
Yeah.
they're encouraging everyone to love Krishna. That's where you want to go. Put more emphasis there, less on the body, less on the flesh, and more on the spirit.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
I want to say more. We did have somebody who, some years ago, he was part of our little drama team here, and his name was Carlos, and he became Carolina, and we didn't know he had those tendencies. And I sometimes see Carolina, in the city, we bump into each other, and after all these years, I've had such a problem to accept there's a different individual here. He's still got an Adam's apple. She's got an Adam's apple and kind of square shoulders. And I'm still having trouble. I'm stubborn to accept that this change has happened. I still see Carlos when I see that person. When somebody makes a big decision about their life, it does affect other people. And I'm just like, say, for instance, somebody said, changes partners, so they decide to go for a divorce.
Affects many people.
After there's kids,
Yeah.
there's kids and everything like that.
Yeah.
And, when you make a big decision like that to leave somebody and then take on somebody else, and there's children involved, the whole community or neighborhood gets affected negatively. It's very confusing. So you have to before you make a decision, think about all the people you're going to influence and affect.
Yeah.
Life is short. It's short, just stick it out for a bit, man. And if you really want to change your gender, you're just thinking about doing this, it'll happen for you in the next life. Just be patient.
Better luck next life. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Thanks.